The biggest challenge we're facing, I think, is the uncertainty that comes with climate change and the globalisation of trade, which is bringing with it all sorts of interesting pathogens and unexpected consequences.
We do seem to be having more issues about species that used to be happy here being less happy, and I think probably the market is moving quite a lot. What in this modern IKEA multi-material age, what would people actually want some of my ash for if I have to take it out early because of ash dieback?
I think another big challenge, particularly for woodland owners and managers, is that we're dealing with something that has a long timescale. So the opportunities to be nimble around change are limited.
I was very struck by a comment from Duncan Stone this morning that the bigger the uncertainty over the challenge, over the changes that are afoot, the more we have to consider how we change. So I'm looking within FE as part of their planning team at ways we can diversify the way in which the estate performs, make it established more soundly on ecological principles of genetic diversity, species that function together. So we're looking at different approaches depending on whether we're afforesting new land, changing the nature of established forests that have been created over the last 100 years, dealing with ancient woodlands, or for that matter dealing with areas that are fundamentally not woodland like heathland and grassland.
Ecological resilience requires a number of things. One is increased opportunities for corridors between very fragmented woodland, but also woodlands that are very diverse in structure internally. It's just a question of getting the balance right, balance of structure, balance of open space, balance of rides, older habitats, younger habitats, regenerative habitats, water, all the rest of it. With regards to financial resilience, I think it's more about trying to find models that work financially, whether it's for the payment of ecosystem services through voluntary or government support, or whether actually the forest itself can sustain itself. And that's, if I had a spectrum, as it were, that's where I would choose to be, so that the forest itself can sustain all the activities that need to go on there and be financially viable in of their own right.
Ancient woodland is absolutely vital. There are soil associations with fungus and with insects, with other species, that go back centuries with ancient woodland. I mean, it's at least 400 years old. And that's not to say that ancient woodland can't play a role in economic resilience either. We've seen a real upturn in firewood markets in the last 5 to 10 years. Ancient woodland is perfectly capable of supporting sustainable timber, firewood industries without compromising against biological objectives.
Many of my forestry colleagues and friends would say, look, if you just do what we've always known is the best practice, if you make sure you don't buy dubious young trees, you don't get poor quality stock, you don't plant trees too far apart, or you don't over prune them or under prune them, if you take a long-term view, all those things. I think a lot of us are saying, look, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with climate change and disease, but our best bet is that if we do all those good things, we're in with a chance.
We use the product, get a chap in with his wood miser and use that on our estate, so it's very sort of low level and very local. But I think that in itself is quite good. You know, we're not racking up loads and loads of miles, and we're not transporting timber around with the risk of things like pathogens and diseases being spread.
I'm told from the science that trees are actually having to evolve 30 times faster than they did in the last ice ages. And whilst animals can move through the landscape, trees really can't. So I'm trying to say to people, think about the fact that we're moving south at about 3 miles a year, and our trees probably can't cope with that, so we should be looking to actually assist with assisted migration to bring southerly genetics further north to help ourselves. But that's quite difficult because we've had for 20 years a mantra that local is best. And the very fact that local is best is worked on the idea that local adaptation works. But of course the local environment's changing.
It's interesting to see the dichotomy of views between the different organisations, but there seems to be a common theme that woods need to be managed. And that's very much the approach of the Royal Forestry Society as well, is to inspire people to manage their woods wisely and sustainably. Whether your principal interest is commercial, whether it's ecological, whether it's recreational, Woods need to be managed to provide all of those uses, and if woods are not managed, then they won't provide those benefits.
I think my one message from today is that in order to broaden our ideas about a very uncertain future, we have to collaborate, we have to pool our knowledge, because without doing that, we won't find the answers we need.
It's not really about what we think as maybe those who work in the environmental sector or for government. It's actually about those who own and care for our forests. So we know that the vast majority, 72% of all woodlands in the UK, are owned by private individuals. You know, what do they want? What are their ambitions, their goals, their aspirations? What are the barriers for them to do the right thing? And what is the right thing? So for me, it's all around how we can work with the woodland owners to support them, because actually, if we can take that 72% of people who do own these forests with us on a journey to make them well informed, to care for them, to support them, that's our role, and that should come out with then a robust, resilient resource in the future.